It's an 18th century Moravian-built home, one of the earlier houses. It's log framed, plastered inside, clapboarded outside.
Welcome to my midlife crisis.
I don't know what he must have been thinking. I mean, it looked to me like it needed just to be knocked down.
Well, I actually told Bob Hansen about the house. I had just passed it for so many times, and there was a sad little sign in front that it was offered by Preservation North Carolina.
We typically look at ourselves as kind of the dog pound of the real estate market. We end up getting the things that realtors typically don't want to deal with. These are houses that a lot of the realtors would say, oh, that's a tear down. I worked with this house for probably 3+ years trying to find a buyer. The heirs of the Drage family worked with us. We required an option on the property. Basically, we worked through getting an option on the property so that we can advertise it and find a buyer. Once we find a buyer, we purchase it and sell it at the same closing, but put protective covenants on it in between. They wanted to ensure that the house itself was protected, because even though it's zoned residential, someone could have come in and torn the house down and built another residential structure here. We were running out of time. I think they were getting a little bit discouraged, and we hadn't found a buyer. A lot of people come in and looked at the property, and because of the cost of the rehabilitation, had walked away.
I had thought about doing something like this myself, but sort of looked in the windows and decided it was beyond me.
We drove through Bethania. He mentioned that, oh, there's a house here that's been for sale for years, and we slowed down and in fact, I think pulled over and kind of peered in the window and said, this might be kind of interesting to look at.
The family that was selling the house, Mr. and Mrs. Drage, they had both died, and the estate was offering the house. And I think Preservation North Carolina, I feel, is a very important house historically. They don't know exactly when this house was built, but it was built by Michael Hooser, and he died in 1789.
Bethania was the first planned Moravian settlement in North Carolina. It was planned in Europe to function as the first village of the Lord, one of 6 villages here in Moravian Wachovia. Gentry came to visit from across the state. Everybody knew about the Moravian settlements.
Bethania is the only medieval planned farming community south of Pennsylvania.
It was a typical German planned agricultural settlement, and you had town lots that were very specific size. Everybody was given their orchard lots in the back to go farm, as well as their communal farming lots.
The Michael Hooser house was the first home to be built on an orchard claimed from original orchard lots.
Michael Hooser was not a Moravian. He was a refugee who had sought sanctuary in the settlement of Bethabara, which meant House of Passage. And during the French and Indian War, lots of people who were set upon with the antagonisms came into Bethabara. The Moravians let them in, and because there was such overcrowding there, they decided to found the first planned settlement in the Wachovia tract, which is Bethania, sooner than originally anticipated.
The Hoosers eventually became Moravians, but they were invited to live here. There were a number of outsiders living in Bethabara, and it was overcrowding in Bethabara, which is now essentially deserted, that started Bethania.
Bethania is encapsulated in a time of people being a community, and it just has a charm that you just don't find in other places. When it used to be, you know, that you were a part of a community, you were a part of a church, you were a part of, you know, your neighbors' lives. And Bethania is that.